I was so happy to learn the truths of the Bible that were being taught to me that I just hung on and ended up being baptized. You had a really idealistic or idyllic childhood and a lot of, decency, I would say. It wasn't perfect. My parents weren't perfect parents. The family wasn't perfect, but it was idyllic in a lot of ways. Parents stayed married. There was no raging addiction or abuse in the home per se. And so in that sense, everything should have turned out fine, but then I had spots where there were traumatic events. So one of the most profound was moving when I was 10 years old from a little town in Ohio to a larger city, a more cosmopolitan area in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And the changes that came about as a result of that move and the social changes, the changes in my social milieu that were so impacting in and of themselves, and then layered on top of that was an abuse situation.
Tell me a little bit about the abuse.
So the girls at the school where I attended were far more sophisticated than I was. I remember coming to school the first day in a little outfit that had a big white collar and a paisley kind of flouncy dress and little white ankle socks and patent leather shoes, and I thought I looked fantastic. They were all wearing mini skirts, nylon stockings, and heels. So it was a totally different world that I was walking into. And so from the moment I came in, I was marked. As a result of that being marked, I was kind of turned on at one point by a group of girls that were sort of like the it girls, But unfortunately, they were also the mean girls. And from the moment I would get off the bus in the morning till I left school, they would dog my steps and belittle and just plague me. And one day they decided to confront me about something that they said that I did. And that was that I tried to steal this girl's boyfriend. So they physically attacked me. And they drugged me out to a baseball diamond that was far away from where any teacher could see, pushed me down in the dirt, and just assaulted me. It was these girls doing this, and the boys were all, of course, everybody just about on the whole playground was gathered around watching. It was horrific. I just totally internalized it. There was no counseling in those days. You didn't do anything in response to something like that. You just were glad it was over. It's not over. There are emotional wounds that have to heal. So as a young adult, I am just out of high school. I'm a seeker in every sense of the word. I had gotten involved with yoga and meditation in high school, and that was my sort of gateway into Eastern religions, which I studied for a number of years after that. Well, many years later, I'm attending college, the first year in college, and it was there that I met Jesus for the first time. I kind of played the Eastern religion thing out as far as I could, and one of the things I noticed about myself was that I had emotional needs. I needed fellowship. I needed a certain personableness in the God that I worshiped that wasn't there in the Eastern gods. And so I finally came to a more really biblical understanding of who God was. At the time, I didn't know if it was a he, she, or an it. Didn't really matter. Really saw God as kind of an amorphous energy mass, consciousness and all this, the universe and all this impersonal stuff. But I remember walking down a country road one night, looking up at the stars, and I lived in the country in Michigan. I looked up at the stars and I heard the words, "I forgive you." And in that sentence, not only did God lift the burden of sin off of me, but he told me he was a personal God and that I had sinned against him because I had kind of rejected that notion as well. So all of that came to me in that one moment on a country road. When I first became a Christian, all my exposure was to, regular Protestant churches that I visited, and everybody ate meat. Well, I was already a vegetarian because remember I was into all the Eastern stuff. So when I saw these Christians eating meat, I thought, well, I guess now that I'm a Christian, I have to start eating meat, but I didn't want to. And then I met Adventists, and the Adventists were Christian and into not just plant-based eating, but just a whole picture of health and how to live in harmony with nature, which was my jam, so to speak. I was actually at a event, a trade show kind of thing, where different people had booths, and the Seventh-day Adventists had a booth, and they put out samples, and I was a college student, I wiped out the whole plate of samples, and then they put out another plate, and I wiped out that plate, and then they put out another plate with one only, please. So I turned away from the samples and looked at the literature rack, and I pulled a piece of literature off the rack, and it was the 8 Laws of Health. And for the first time in my life, I saw the combination of health, plant-based eating, living in harmony with nature, and the gospel of Jesus. And I knew I was home. And that was decades ago. And I still believe that in that moment I found my home, my church home.